Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar about the role of startups in fighting climate change, in which I'm going to be accompanied by Javier Manzanares and Gulnara Aguiar, whom I'll introduce briefly. Thank you very much for joining us. We can now move on to the exciting bit of the event, which is introducing our speakers. I'd like to introduce you a little bit to the whereabouts of Javier and Gulnara, so that you know how privileged we really are to have them both. So I'll introduce Gulnara first. Gulnara is an alum of our partner school in this webinar, which is INSEAD. This is a webinar organized by the Business Schools for Climate Leadership Initiative, which is a joint initiative of 8 business schools in Europe. And this specific webinar is being coordinated jointly by IE University's Business School, and Gulnara is an alum of INSEAD. She is the founder and CEO of Ormex, a young startup and digital marketplace for agricultural carbon emissions, with a clear ambition to reduce the climate change impact and achieve net zero goals by 2030. Gulnara has founded Ormex just after graduation from INSEAD, from their Global Executive MBA in 2019. She's been nominated as a Woman Creator of the Future by the French government in the category of Daring in 2020. Gulnara brings her 13 years niche knowledge and expertise in capital markets, software towards automation and scale up of sustainable and regenerative farming. During her previous experience as the global head of post-trade solutions from 2016 to 2018, she was representing capital markets, middle and back office solutions, software solution for major investment banks worldwide. Prior to this position, she held various positions at Calypso Technology from 2007 to 2016. So it's a pleasure to have Gulnara here, and together with her, we are honored to be joined by Javier Manzanares. Javier is currently the co-CEO of Climate Coin and a member of Trade Advisory Board, co-CEO of Green Climate DAO and member of Advisory Board of Climate Trade at Climate Coin. He was Deputy Director or Executive Director of the Green Climate Fund, which you might know as the GCF, for almost 8 years. Very recently managed to step down of that position to directly get involved with startups. So a very, very interesting move, you know, from the biggest organizations to the smallest, and we will talk about that. Previously, he held the positions of Director and Regional Representative of UNOPS for Mercosur, based in Argentina, and Manager of the Investment and Developing Banking Division at the BCIE, based in Honduras. Javier also worked as EVP for 2 Grupo Fierro private banks in Miami and Guatemala. His career in banking and finance began with Banco Santander in the United States, Hong Kong, and Japan. He was the first chairman of the board of directors at IASE, the International Association for Sustainable Economics. Holds a double MBA from Northwestern University and Kellogg, an executive MBA from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and most importantly, and very proud of that, recently PhD in sustainability management from Inha University in South Korea. So thank you very much, you know, both of you for joining us today. I'm Concepcion Galdon. I'm going to be the moderator for today. I'm the director of IE Center for Social Innovation and Sustainability at IE Business School in Madrid. And I also serve at the IE Sustainability Office as the Sustainable Impact Teaching and Research Lead. So I'm honored to share this afternoon with everybody. So I'd first like to ask our speakers for today to give us a brief introduction to where it is that they come from to this interesting conversation. So Gulnara, I'd like to give you the floor first, and maybe you can do a brief introduction to your background and the key elements that you think everybody should keep in mind when talking about startups and climate change.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me, Concepcion. Yes, my background is basically in capital markets. This is where I worked during 13 last years before joining an executive MBA at INSEAD. And at INSEAD, it was quite a reveal to say, what I'm doing right now, does it really bring something to the world? Is it purposeful? What happens if I do not do my work in capital markets today? Would something change in the world? And the answer was clearly no. And this has brought me to different reflections on the subjects and to say, okay, what can I change and how can I use my capital markets knowledge in a sector that makes sense? And this is how it started just after INSEAD. I decided to leave capital markets and to actually apply all my knowledge in automation, in market infrastructure to a real life sector, which is agriculture. So I have prepped some slides to explain to the audience better what is a carbon removal market and how it works. So let me share with you some slides. So yes, at the beginning, let me present you the global context of carbon. So yes, today I'm working in carbon space. What happens actually? So what we see are the red bubbles, and these red bubbles represent GHG emissions. As you know, there are 7 types of GHG emissions, and actually today it is a huge accumulation of them in a wrong place. Basically, they are based in the seas and in the soils, but today there are 2 present in the atmosphere. So more than 2,300 gigatons of GHG emissions. And this tiny slot that you see here is the place where it is still available. So basically 400 gigatons. And what we see today is that basically we generate more than 50 gigatons of carbon emissions, or tons of carbon equivalent emissions, what we say, per year. And so around 55–60% of it is absorbed by seas and land naturally. However, we still have this surplus of 22.5 gigatons on our hands. And by accumulating this surplus year after year, once we will join this 400 gigatons level, the cap level, basically it's a tipping point of non-return. And so this is very important to understand that we have a limit, right? And here there are 2 solutions, whether we should reduce our emissions. And basically this is where all the companies right now are working with implementing GSG protocol or making ESG disclosure on what they do in this area and implementing scopes 1, 2, 3 of GSG protocol. This is the first solution. But it will never be enough because we still continue using energy, we still continue using waste. So removal is very important. And so what are the different solutions here? Basically, some of them are still nature-based, very important, and some others are man-based, and some others are hybrid. So man-based solutions are very costly in CapEx, you should know it. And nature solutions, as you can see, are the most impactful in terms of how much carbon can we store. So basically for the forest, 58 gigatons and 60 gigatons by absorbing more carbon in the arable lands. So working with landowners and farmers. And this is exactly where Ormex wished to place himself to actually reach this bigger impact and quicker as possible. So how do we do that? Typically, our solution is a marketplace where we, actually created for farmers and cooperatives on one side and for big corporates on another side, to actually create this digital infrastructure for agricultural carbon storage. This is very innovative, and we make it on a digital way because all the transactions as of now are mainly OTC, or what we say over-the-counter transactions. So it's very important in this market, and if we wish to reach out this goals 60 gigatons, first to scale and second to automate. And this is possible to be done only with disruptive solutions using new technologies first, and secondly by those who know how to work on capital markets, how to standardize, how to structure processes to make them easy and applicable for everybody. And this is exactly what we do at Ormex. There are 3 steps, basically, working in carbon marketplace. The first step is actually to diagnose the soils and also to forecast the future emissions that farmers can store in their soils. This is the first step, and it is done by our partners. Ormex is placing itself first in certification and second in the trading space. This is our top-notch knowledge of the team, how to build a market infrastructure. This is what we exactly do right now. So the benefits are different on one side for farmers and another side for corporates. For the farmers, it's very important to make them come. The difficulty is to make the supply, to create the supply, basically. And today farmers do not come or sell their carbon credits because first, they are not rewarded for their efforts. And second is that the price progress is so huge during the last years, progress basically 3-4 times. And so they are waiting to have a better price and get a better price in the future. The processes are very complex and the solutions are not flexible. And we're currently removing all these barriers at Ormex to actually create the best price solution for the farmers with some innovative technologies, as auctioning mechanism, for example, is one of them. We simplify the whole process, talking their language, doing design thinking sections with them on the ground to know how to make it easy to use for them. And on the other side, we have corporates. And for them, what is the most important is to know how can they manage the carbon offsetting at one place, starting from setting the targets until providing financial and fiscal reports to different kind of regulations. One of them is SFDR, for example. So also the certification should be very trustable and it should be compliant with ESG, of course, and disclosure. And this is exactly what we do. We, for example, quantify some SDG goals on our platform and we link them to each project developed by the farmers, which is also very innovative. Basically, this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gulnara. I would like to now switch to Javier, right? I mentioned that you moved from a very many millions worth organization to a startup. So it must be in a very interesting space. So please tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Concepción, Conchita. Congratulations to IE, Instituto de Empresa and INSEAD, for organizing this webinar. And also congratulations to Gulnara. It's excellent to see more players are coming in, and I'll share a few things about that with the audience. I've been myself in what we call the traditional finance space. So that's the Green Climate Fund and large banks like Banco Santander, etc., and even regional development banks like CABE, where I worked for. Now, in finishing almost an 8-year cycle with the GCF and the traditional finance, I decided, very much passionate by the digital world, by innovation, whether it's social, economic, or technological innovation, to move into solutions that can bring in the participation from many stakeholders in the market. And that's precisely what I'm in today. So in combining digital social innovation plus a vehicle that can indeed provide solutions to the path towards net zero. That's what climate change, climate coin is about. And also on top of Climate Coin, I joined as an advisory board member, Climate Trade. Again, Gulnara, great to see you in that space. Climate Trade is a marketplace also, right? It's been operating since 2017. And in essence, very similar to Golnarek's company. In essence, what we do is provide a market, an opportunity for developers to upload their projects that have generated great carbon credits that are certified, and we link them with the demand side. So partners that would like to offset their emissions, so they look into the projects and they make a decision between the two of them. We don't participate in the pricing negotiation, but we do provide the blockchain technology for them to present their projects. So we've done over 3 million tons. And what is interesting about this factor is that for the last, since 2017, all the way up to 2021, we did offset 2 million tons. But only in the first quarter of this year, 2022, we have done 1 million tons in three months. So probably that gives an idea to the audience on how important this is. Now, the market is growing exponentially, but there are not very many credible certifiers out there. So it's very good to see. We're not only in the removal space. When you talk about the reduction, mitigation, you can do avoidance, you can do reduction, you can do removal. So we do provide a marketplace for the three main niches. I will be sharing a presentation with you. My intention again is to link the three aspects. So towards climate startups, I have chosen within digital innovation Web3. I have chosen within social innovation DAOs.
Would you mind, Javier, putting your full screen view of the slide so that we can read better?
Yeah, let me see if I can manage.
And maybe
can you see it now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. So as of pillar number 3, a path to net zero is climate coin. So we're building together a digital economy. This digital economy will be bigger than the industrial and agricultural economies of today. And this new digital economy is based on data. The key point or the key question to this is who owns what data? This is what we call the digital freedom. And ask yourself, do you own your own data? Are you at this point an economic player? Are you monetized thus far? So let's talk a little bit about the technological innovation and the reasons why I have chosen Web3. Web3 is a modern generation of internet. It allows more privacy within the technological systems, and it allows for content ownership. And that is the main difference between Web3 and Web2. And ask to yourself a question. Are you being targeted within advertising? Do you feel that you have lack of privacy? That's Web2. Web3 uses blockchain technology and the tools of decentralization and collaboration. So that rather than yourself being a product of the internet, Web3 allows you to be the owner of your own content. That's extremely important. You see, slowly with the Web3, the internet will grow and expand with more anonymity and with a lot more privacy in a manner that is centralized. So individuals within Web3 will explore the internet freely without the fears of being listened to or without the fears of being watched. And I ask to the audience, does that sound familiar to you? Well, on top of that, this Web3 will streamline business, will and their operations will be cutting out the middleman. Pay attention to this because you will be hearing a lot about Web3. And when we speak about Web3, there are different areas that we could expand on. So you can talk about metaverse. You can talk about the creator of economy. Today, I will be highlighting more two particular pillars. One is decentralized finance, and the other one is the decentralized autonomous organization, DAOs. If we start with social innovation, DAOs are blockchain-based organizations. They are collectively owned and controlled by its members. DAOs built-in resources that no one can access without a group's permission. So we're talking about democratizing to a corporate level within a governance that provides the ability to all the token holders to be participants. And it works on a voting process. DAOs work on voting process. Let me give you a few numbers. So at least within the latest data that we have, 3.4 million votes have been casted for over 56,000 decisions. And with a population of active voters within the DAOs of nearly 700,000 voters as of today. Then I said earlier on, let me emphasize a couple of pillars within the Web3. And one of them was DeFi, an area where maybe the audience would like to pay close attention to. So 1.7 billion people do not have access to a bank account. However, 1 billion out of the 1.7 billion people, they do have a mobile phone. And guess what? 480 million people out of the 1.7 billion that have not access to bank account, they too have access to internet. So immediately after, you can think, okay, what are the areas of business, and for our startups in particular, business that we can jump into? So you said remittances, $680 billion on remittances per year, charging an average of 6% by the traditional finance establishments. There is another very important area within these numbers, that almost 50% of the adults have not sent or received any digital payments in the last year. So for those who are a little bit skeptical about DeFi, decentralized finance, let me share with you a couple of slides. So DeFi has gone from a zero total value locked to over $100 billion in 2-year time. So that would, in measurements, if you want to take this into account and see how does that compare with US banks, well, as of today, it would occupy the position 31st of the US largest banks in the world. So when I decided to move from a traditional finance space into today's digital and social solutions, so I joined Climate Coin as a one step further, and that is you do create the carbon credits, you certify those carbon credits, so we are to tokenize those carbon credits that have been certified and convert those tokens into a security. So Climate Coin is the world's first regulated digital carbon asset. So the idea definitely behind is to be backed by very high quality carbon credits. And this would empower individuals to the grassroots level, communities and companies to be part of climate finance solutions. By acquiring one Climate Coin, you are participating in one project, and the value of the one Climate Coin will be backed and aligned with the price of 1 ton of CO2 equivalent. I think the important also part of, and with this I'll finish, but with the important part about this is that we have created a DAO. DAO is based on Web3 and blockchain technology, and the ecosystem of the Green Climate DAO also provides a DeFi, a decentralized finance solution that we call Climate Finance Solution. This will provide financial instruments for developers to use climate coins, leverage themselves without a need to immediately sell the carbon credits that are certified. So they can keep them in a portfolio of securities, with securities that, particularly in our case, to be regulated by the Security Exchange Commission of the United States. And with this, I finish for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Javier, so much for your presentation. It is, a fascinating space, and I'm almost certain, right, that a lot of the people that are in the audience now are wondering. Nara introduced that picture, right, of the planet surrounded by CO2. Climate change is such a huge matter, right, and it requires so much work. And startups, they're smaller organizations. So what is the role of startups in fighting climate change? To what extent are really startups able to make a difference? And do you see them more involved in adaptation, in mitigation, in both? Do they have different roles in each? Maybe Gulnara, you can answer first, and then we can have Javier.
Sure. I guess what I observed coming from big corporates, even if these were fintech companies, these are huge fintechs and basically best in the world in the huge organizations. So what I observed working in a startup and creating my own startup is that it helps to be absolutely disruptive in terms of technology, because actually you work with people who learned not only the technology of big corporates, who do the same technology during 10, 20, 30 years, but actually can apply their knowledge of new technologies very easily. So there is a sort of mix of this new technology. This is absolutely important to have this knowledge level. The second thing is that you can take decisions as a startup very quickly compared to very bureaucratic state of organizations. You can also remove these barriers of bureaucracy and focus also on what is important. What are you doing really, the product? And also the most important basically for me is taking care of these customers, taking care of people who really do things on the ground. So on my side, it is farmers, and provide something easy to use for them. And this is crucial. This is important. This is not about branding or changing branding of a big, huge company every year. It's a real solution. And finally, actually today, what I see, and Ormix is also part of a community, which is called the Green Tech Alliance. So for all startups present in this call or who wish to join a community of climate tech and green tech startups, I really recommend to join Green Tech Alliance. Actually, it's collaboration between the value chain that we bring in climate change. This is really important. And this collaboration and this co-creation is very important. And so for me, startups, what they do, they permit to make a shift, actually, to permit to make a shift in the sort of original state that we have to an absolutely different and disruptive level, and with huge scale. And this is exactly what we need.
Mm-hmm. So there's usability, there's customer value, there's agility, right, that they bring to the table. Javier, where do you see they're adding value? In what spaces?
Yeah, very much in line with Gulnara. So we have a situation of a planet that is emitting over 50 billion tons of CO2 equivalent on a yearly basis. So unfortunately, the traditional players are just not enough to cover the dimensions of the problem. So there is an enormous opportunity for startups in fighting climate change to participate, and very much because of the description that Gulnara was saying. Startups are flexible. Startups can adapt to continuous change, and particularly because the market, in particularly those large banks and MDBs, so on and so forth, and funds, they will require and do require science-based targets to be presented somehow. So climate change-related startups can provide that sort of data, very relevant data, in a manner that adapts continuously to a system of a digital economy that increasingly provides continuous solutions. So big players cannot do it. Startups can provide so, and startups can participate by proving and testing new technologies that will create an impact. Let me just give you an example. With this, I finish. Supply chain. You guys will hear, if you haven't yet, on scope 1, 2, and 3. When you look particularly at scope 3, you have to map out the entire supply chain. Startups can perfectly find solutions that are based in digital and social innovation. And when we talk about mitigation and adaptation, Conchita, I think nowadays they're pretty much both merging into solutions. It's just a question of time before we talk about, yes, a mitigation and adaptation solution for the projects. Over to you.
Cool. But then, so it's huge, and it's all kind of mingled up, right? To some extent, which provides a plethora of opportunity as you were discussing. But now imagine, you know, I'm a wannabe entrepreneur, right? Like many of the people in our audience might be, and all I know for sure is somehow I want to contribute to the fight against climate change. Where do I start? What's the specific, you know, it's this technology, is it, you know, is it, well, we saw a huge deal this week on carbon capture technologies, right? A company in Europe just raised 650 million for carbon. So should I get into carbon capture? Should I get into distributed ledger technology and, you know, Web 3.0? Where should I be learning and looking into if I really aim to grow fast, scale up, and make a difference? And get funding, which is
That's an important point. Well, I can answer this question, Conchita. So on my side, definitely, this is where you need to start. You need to start by listening to your heart. You need to know what are you interested in. So it's not the question of technology. Technology is just a tool. It's something that helps us to do something, but it's not in the middle of progress. What is progress? Progress is not a new iPhone, right? It's something different. It's about your well-being. It's about the well-being of our planet. It's about our children. So this is for me progress, and that's why you need to hear your heart actually, and to say, okay, what is near to my heart? Where, in which area I feel good? Then the second question is more about, okay, what is my knowledge background? What knowledge I can bring to a totally different area, which is climate change, but from my background, because everybody of us has something new to bring to this level. And then you look at different areas. So there is effectively carbon reduction. In carbon reduction, there are several companies working on helping corporates to put in place in scopes 1, 2, 3, and reduce their current emissions. The second project in carbon will be carbon removal effectively. And then you can work whether on man-based solutions, whether on hybrid as biochar, for example, where on agroforestry or agricultural solutions. And then coming from financial world, I also saw a huge opportunity in actually creating a new model to integrate climate risks in our financial models, which is not the case today. Our economy doesn't take at all in account the climate risk. And this is extremely important to integrate it, to know how are we going, how do we evolve, how the different projects are evolving, where you are investing. And here there is a huge opportunity for creation. And the last point on my side will be about robotics and IoT. We need different sensors. We need new satellite solutions to make the solutions scalable and actually to actually put them at a large scale. Yes, basically.
Thank you very much. Javier, anything to add to that?
Yes, I say from the individual perspective, do participate, become active. Make sure that you understand what your carbon footprint is like, and try to be part of solutions like a Green Climate DAO. By being part of the Green Climate DAO, by investing in one climate coin, you are already actively participating in a climate finance solution. Yeah. So that's my first message. On message to entrepreneurs, I would say follow at large agriculture, forestry, and other land use. Be in tune with the importance of the achieving net zero and all the opportunities that present to startups in general. And when looking into sectors, I probably would recommend that you look into a food industry, particularly in this cycle of the economy, and also into manufacturing, rethinking manufacturing. You want to make sure that across the supply chain, there is an increasingly amount of traceability and trust in end products. So we want to make sure that we reduce the use of virgin materials. We want to make sure that we incorporate post-consumer waste into products, or that we replace existing materials. So maybe that gives us, all of us, a window of opportunity and a mindset towards contributing both from the personal and from the entrepreneurial part of it. Over to you.
Javier, I have a question. I want to combine it with a question that we got from the audience too. So I wanted to know, like, specifically, right, how are DAO technologies fighting climate change, right? And I want to combine it with a question from the audience, where, you know, we've been talking about, you know, the benefits that it can bring about, but we get a question about the negative impact, right, of DAOs, tokens, Web3 for the environment, how energy intensive some of these solutions are. So how do you see these two things playing out, right? The potential contribution that these technologies can have versus the potential damage that they generate?
Yeah, and that's indeed a very good question. So you do have benefits in using DLTs, right? A blockchain presents a number of benefits, and maybe as not to repeat myself, but they increase the level of decentralization and collaboration. They enable smart networks to work together based on the IoT, on the Internet of Things. But there's also some drawbacks, right? As we all know, tokenizing, mining, this creates a very large footprint. At ClimateCoin, at the Green Climate DAO, we have partnered with Algorand. And the reason we selected Algorand to start with is because they have achieved, through a pure proof of stake on the blockchain, on the blockchain platform, they have achieved a net zero modality. So when we create tokens, what we know behind the technology is that it's neutral, it's carbon neutral. So that's from our end, that was extremely important when setting up the ecosystem of ClimateCoin. And that was, the solution came from Algorand, as I'm pretty sure many others will come with a solution to it.
So it depends on the specific technology that you choose, right? Within these technologies, there's a big range, and it's not all made equal. It is important, to go for the ones that can really put us in the road to a better future. And Gulnara, another question about these technologies, like they're complex, right? And putting these things together requires technically solid people. So how do you engage, and with the real people on the ground, with farmers in your case, so that these technologies can ultimately have an impact in their daily endeavors?
Right. So also to answer a little bit the previous question, we quite do the same. There are several blockchains today that so they're low energy consuming, and it is very important to choose these ones. We also you can also think about Tezos, you can think about Cardano, you can think about Celo. These are other or Polygon. These are the other blockchains that are low carbon emissions, and that's why we should privilege those. Then your question was more about how do we relate it to the real world, and this is extremely important because today what we see, and especially with the last announce of low carbon, a huge marketplace who just raised 70 million with tokens, partially half. We ask ourselves the question about speculation and about a new carbon bubble, and we should absolutely avoid that. And the way to avoiding it is exactly to create real carbon credits on the ground with people who can do that, or with the technology that permits to do that. So it's not only to back up something, it's literally to create something new. And I was very glad to hear from Vera, which is one of the international standards, that they said that they will refuse now to back up any tokens on the blockchains if people do not create their own. So, and this is absolutely important, and this is what we do. We go one by one to see the farmers, to see the cooperatives. We talk them about our technology and see if they are adapted to it, if they feel confident with it. This is also very important. So for us, the first usage of blockchain is mainly about registry, and to use it as a certification registry and as a traceable and trustworthy solution for the buyers. We are absolutely sure that this will avoid double counting, which is not so used today. If you buy carbon credits, you can absolutely sell them to somebody else, and nobody will even tell something about that. And we should absolutely avoid this.
Yeah, there's actually
this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was going to follow up because there's a question from the audience precisely about carbon certification, and it just flows nicely from what you just said. Actually, they ask, what does a good, trustable carbon certification process depend on, and what are the main challenges for achieving this? So, Gulnara and Javier, what do you think about this?
All right. So there are several standards on the market. The mainly used are effectively Vera or VCS, and you have also gold standard. These are mainly in agroforestry. So you should also navigate which standards are in which area. In agriculture, we have Puro.Earth, which is a standard in agricultural carbon removal. And there are a few others. We're all cooperating in voluntary carbon marketplace. This is very important to explain here. Voluntary carbon markets is not so regulated. And so everybody can create its own solution. But how to make it trustworthy, that actually depends on what kind of customers are willing to buy your certification. And why should they buy you? Whether it's because of technology, whether because you are actually have different kind of certifications, like financial certifications, like on your market or locally. You can also have ISO certifications. And this permits actually this trustworthy solution right now from what we see. And also to communicate a lot, make it transparent and open. Who owns the credits? Once it has been updated, what is the status of the certification? To whom belongs the credits, and that everybody can have a look and see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I may jump in,
Yes.
Conchita. very important that all countries, and I'm going to speak mostly about developing countries, very important that they have a national registry, extremely important. So yes, we do avoid double counting, but also we can check on the progress of the national determined contributions. Now, equally important in my view is country ownership. So yes, there are a few credible companies, entities that are providing that certification to the projects. I think equally important is the developing countries take ownership somehow within that process. So having national certification companies that participate in that process, it's essential as well. Perhaps with an added element of maybe a regional, international organization, to provide an additional element of validity, let's call it recertification or you name it. But scale is what we all need. We cannot generate impact if we only have 3 or 4 certifiers. And I do understand that they have done a fantastic job in the voluntary carbon markets. I don't know to what extent they should be a problem if this Verras and Gold Standard, etc., if they certify high quality projects or carbon credits, why would they have a problem of those being tokenized if the tokenization is going to bring in additional elements of benefits into climate finance? So in reality, what Gulnara was saying about Vera is that they want to have a say on those tokens before they are issued. But that's also fun. I mean, they can be part of the process. I don't know to what extent they can prohibit that. You can tokenize pretty much anything you want. How can you prohibit me from tokenizing? But maybe that's a legal matter. I don't think that we need to go that far. I think the important aspect is not that. The important aspect is scale. We need to scale up voluntary carbon markets as an additional solution. But we can equally tokenize ETS allowances. Why not? The purpose here is facilitating access to individual investors and communities to be part of climate finance solution. I think that's what we want to concentrate on. We want to concentrate on that, on high quality carbon credits, essential. We want to also concentrate on high quality digital MRVs, monitoring, reporting, and verification. That's what we want to put our energies and providing solutions, again, for individual investors to be part of the climate finance solutions.
Yeah, actually, elaborating more on the transparency conversation that you brought up, there's another question from the audience asking, to what point is the information related to where the carbon credits come from? To what extent is that information distributed to the token owners? Because, I might want to know what it is that is backing up my token, and I might not feel as comfortable backing up, certain kinds of emissions or credits than others, right? Which some I might find more legitimate than others. So how's that disclosure done or not done?
Gulnara, would you like to?
Javier, I'll leave you to answer this question.
Well, thank you for leaving me this question, Gulnara, because it's an excellent point. Very frankly, excellent. So when you talk about an NFT, so you're talking about a non-fungible token. Yeah, so you do have entirely access to the project because the project has been tokenized. You are partially the owner of a token of one project as pretty much an NFT. Now, when you tokenize a pool of projects, then exactly that's where the question is very pertinent, because you are buying one token of a pool of projects. So is fungible at that point, right? Now, for those who are tokenizing, they are to provide information detailed information on the pool of projects that are part of the token that you are investing in. That's transparency, that's integrity, that's where all should go to. And I think some of the players are providing that type of information. Unfortunately, not all.
So yes, I think for the token owners, it's literally to each token owner to verify to which kind of token he or she investing on, and to verify what kind of information he can find about the registry and the certification of these tokens. And do he see, yes, can he easily see the owning information? What kind of projects, in which country? This is extremely important. To whom do they belong? And also the status. And not all the platforms provide that, even if there are lots of carbon offsetting platforms. So this is extremely important to each of us to go and verify to what you invest on, because there are lots of solutions where you just actually where companies pre-sell carbon credits, but they even didn't do anything, they didn't implement anything. So they didn't have carbon credits. And you also need to know that there are two types of carbon removal. So projects, one of them is called exempt and one of them is called exposed. Exempt meaning that we start from now as a T0 and we start a new project, or farmers or somebody else, or in energy, for example, sector, they start a new project and during 5 years we will monitor it. And at the end of 5 years, basically you will get the whole amount of carbon credits that were actually forecasted at the beginning. Okay. Exposed meaning that the project started in the past and you can obtain carbon credits that are already somehow realized and verified and monitored and calculated. These are more expensive, but these are for sure.
Yeah. So we have 4 minutes left, and I want to finish by asking you about collaboration, right? The Business Schools for Climate Leadership initiative that brought, INSEAD and IE Business School together in this webinar is a collaboration effort. So what is the level of collaboration among startups, and what can corporations learn from them in terms of, creating this collaborative ecosystem? If you can answer in a minute or so, each of you.
Gulnara, the floor is yours, I think.
Okay, so yes, on my side, collaboration is extremely important because whatever we do that in a value chain. And there are several steps, and none of us can afford to do everything. So it's extremely important to collaborate and make partnerships with other companies, as well, even with your competitors. Because we all have, if you go inside, you will see that we all do different solutions. And so none of us have found a miracle solution for the moment to actually store gigatons of carbon in 1 or 2 months, or even in a year. So we still need to continue to collaborate and to create a solution all together. That's the only way to go.
Yeah, from my side, I think the natural response from a startup as an entrepreneur is to feel very defensive about its own project or its own new technology. So that's usually, to your question, Conchita, there is not that much of a collaboration, to be frank with you. Business Schools for Climate Leadership would be a convener, an excellent convener. I mean, should you guys consider the possibility of creating space for your 8 universities, I believe it's 8 universities, so that startups from the different business schools can work together on a safe environment. And the safe environment, by that I mean that you provide the trust to the startups that the intention is to exchange. It's like a knowledge hub. It's like a platform where perhaps all the startups can be part of the platform and take advantage of what other startups are learning, what other startups are going through, and maybe even more so, maybe finding ways for the startups to joint efforts to collaborate. So it would be an excellent, perhaps, initiative that maybe you guys from the Business School for Climate Leadership can promote. Over to you.
100%. Yeah, I was actually, we should definitely look into doing something along those lines, because in each of the schools We have a community of entrepreneurs around us. So yeah, actually, I wanted to mention, all of the other schools that are involved together with INSEAD and iBusiness School. The Business Schools for Climate Leadership is also founded by IESE, which worked with HSE already in a previous webinar on geopolitics and energy transition in Europe. But there's other webinars coming up by our other partner schools, and I would like to invite the audience to join those as well. So on June 17th, that's next week, our friends from IMD and Cambridge Judge and Oxford Said are going to have a webinar on latest IPCC report and climate leadership. So I would invite everybody to join that. And on July 11th, our friends at INSEAD also, and London Business School and Oxford Said and Cambridge Judge will also be together in another webinar about COP15 and what it means for business and climate leadership. So that's the Paris Agreement. So all in all, I want to thank everybody from Business Schools for Climate Leadership on behalf of HSE, IE, IESE, EMD, INSEAD, London Business School, Oxford Said, and University of Cambridge. Thank all the audience for spending time with us this afternoon, and mostly thank Gulnara and Javier for your time. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot.
Great
Thank
pleasure.
you very, very much.
Great pleasure. Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.